In this lecture, we're going to look in detail at how you can manipulate your models dynamically. We're going to go to Qt Creator and play with this. Here we are in Qt Creator. We're going to create our new project. It's a Qt Quick application as usual. We're going to call it Dynamic Models Demo. Save it in the usual location. Hit Next. Choose our Qt version. Choose our kit and finish. We want to change the title here. Because we are going to need a few buttons, we're going to import Qt Quick controls. We want 2.4. And we want to import Qt Quick layouts. Let's use 1.4. We want to put in a column layout. It is going to fill the parent. And this side, we're going to have a list view whose ID is going to be mListView as usual. It's going to have a model assigned to it and a delegate, but we don't have those defined yet. We're going to define them in a while. But we want to make this fill the width. We're going to say layout, fill width, set this to true, and layout, fill height, set this to true. To save on some typing, I'm going to put in a model that I had prepared before. It's nothing you haven't seen before. It is a list model, and inside we have list elements. We should go down in our list view and specify this model. Let's look at the ID. The ID is mListModel, so this should be our model. The same as for the model, the delegate is also prepared before, Control-A, Control-I to align. And it is nothing you haven't seen before also. Inside we have a rectangle, which has a bunch of properties. Inside we have a text element. And we have a mouse area to make this delegate clickable. So we're going to be able to click on each row of our list view that we have in this column layout here. Okay, now we can specify our delegate ID to be our delegate. It's not delegated, it is delegate. This is good. And you see that we are printing the first name and the last name, which are the roles that we have in our list element here. Now we want to put a few buttons below the list view here. We are going to use these buttons to dynamically manipulate this model here. Let's go down here and put in a button. The text is going to say add item. And we want to know when it is clicked. That's where we're going to add stuff to our model here. We want to copy this button and paste it a couple of times. I think we need 4 buttons here, so we're going to paste this 3 times. The second one is going to say clear. The third one is going to say delete. We want to delete that item. Let's spell this correctly. And the last one is going to say set item at index 2 as well. Okay, so how do we add items to our model here? The first thing you need to remember is that you're going to use the ID here to manipulate the model. Let's go back to the documentation, look at list model. Let's go up and find the methods that we have. We have a method that is called append, and you append things like this. Okay, so what we can do is actually to take this, because I like to learn from the documentation. I'm going to copy this, come back in our handler for add item. We're going to paste this in. I'm going to change fruit model to mListModel. I can do that. So cost is going to be first name, because that's the role that we have here. I can actually copy this and paste to reduce the chance of having an error. Last name, I copy and paste in here. And let's say I want to put in Daniel and Gakwaya. I want to add my name in here. And when we click, we're going to see my name added to the list here. Let's run the application. We are here. And you see that these buttons are not filling the available space. We're going to correct this in a moment, but we should click on Add Item and see my name added here. This is cool, isn't it? Let's go back and make the buttons fill the available width. We can do this by copying what is here and putting that in every single button that we have in here. Let's do that for everyone. And we should be fine by now. Now we want to clear everything in the model. The way you do that, you say mlist model clear. Easy, right? Let's run. Okay, ready? Clear, everything is gone, and we can add a bunch of other pieces of data. And notice that we can still scroll because this is a list view that has the flicking button. We want to delete the item at index 2. How do we do that? So if you look here, the first item is at index 0, 1, 2, and you keep going up like that. So if we delete, let's close the application and run it again so that you see different pieces of data. Jon Snow is at 0, Nikolai Chenko is at 1, Mitch Matson is at 2. Okay, so if we delete at index 2, we're going to delete Mitch Matson here. That's what we want to do. Let's go back to the documentation and see what they have to say. We can go up to find all these methods, and we find a method that is called remove. You pass in the index where you want to start removing, and you pass in the number of elements that you want to remove. This is easy, right? So we can go back to our signal handler here and say mlist model remove. The index is going to be 2 because that's what we want to remove, and we want to remove one element. Let's run the application. Okay, we are here. Ready? Delete. You see Mitch Matson is gone. Now index 2 is occupied by Ken Kologorov here. We can also remove him, and we can keep removing data. Notice that the moment we don't have an item at index 2 and we try to remove an item, you see that we have an error here. So you should be careful and check the index before you remove an element. And the check is really not that hard. You just have to see that 2 is less than the number of items that you have in the model. The way you do that, you can say F2 is less than mlist view, the model that is attached to that, and count. This is the property that has the number of items in that model. So if this is the case, we can successfully remove the element because it is available. If this is not the case, you can console log index is invalid, something like this. Let's run again. Okay, we delete our items, Kologorov, we remove, Vince, we remove. If we try to remove again, it says index is invalid because the number of items is 2 now, and 2 is not less than 2. That's why we fall here. I hope this makes sense. Okay, we want to do the last operation, which is setting the item at index 2. Notice that at index 2, we have Mitch Matheson. We can change that dynamically. Let's look at the set method in our documentation here. You pass the index and you pass the JSON object containing the data that you want to set your thing with. So we are basically going to use this syntax here. So we should copy this to save some time. And we are going to say mlist model set. We pass the index that we want to modify. It is index 2, and we pass in a JSON object like this. First name, last name, So we can say John Doe in here. Why not? Let's run. Index 2 is Mitch Matson here. And if you set that, you see that it becomes John Doe. And everything we had before works. Okay, we can keep setting the item at index 2 as we want. And this is really all I had to show you in this lecture. I hope you have a better understanding of how you can modify your model at runtime. You have a bunch of methods available to you that you can play with if you happen to need that. In the next lecture, we're going to work with grid view. I'll see you there.